Welcome aboard, everybody, to the Tuesday edition of Freedomlink Radio. I'm Joe Joseph, joined tonight my co-host John King and my two very, very, very special guests running for the 3rd Congressional District of Colorado, independent, and I say with a capital I, Tisha Casida joins the broadcast, and Michael Badnarik, best known as the 2004 Libertarian presidential candidate and defender of the Constitution. Welcome aboard, guys and gal.
Thank you.
So, I want to start this off. This is here we have a very, very interesting story coming from Politico. Now, anybody that doesn't know Politico is the same people that says, oh, Ron Paul, he can't be electable. No way. He is not electable by any means. He's so out of the mainstream. Forget it. So they came out with an article today that says that they're moving the caucus count to an undisclosed location. And I want to get your feedback on this, Tisha, because this is really startling. It says threats to disrupt the Iowa Republican caucuses next week have prompted state GOP officials to move the vote tabulation to a undisclosed location. Politico has learned. The state party has not yet told the campaigns exactly where the returns will be added up, only that it will be off-site from the Iowa GOP Des Moines headquarters. The 2008 caucus results were tabulated at the state party offices, which sit just a few blocks from the state capitol. Activist groups, including the Occupy movement, have indicated that they'll attempt to interrupt rallies in the closing days before next Tuesday's caucuses. What does that have to do with the vote count? The AP reported today that Occupy is making plans to even attend some caucuses and vote no preference, but not disturb the voting process. But Iowa Republicans are bracing for other threats, sources say, including hacking. Iowa GOP Chair Matt Strawn wouldn't comment on the plan to move the vote count, except to say they're increasing security measures. Quote, the Iowa GOP is taking additional safeguards to ensure the caucus results are tabulated and reported to the public in an accurate and timely manner, Strawn said. Quote, we are not commenting on specific security procedures. So, hearing that, Tisha, why do you think they're doing this?
I think that the mainstream GOP is terrified of what's going on in Iowa, and I think that they don't even know how scared they should be quite yet. Because people are waking up. So.
Now, have you noticed in your district, an awakening on a local level or more concern or awareness that this left-right paradigm is really, there's no paradigm at all. There's no difference between the left and the right at this point. They're all just kind of mucked together in this one Republicrat type of entity?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've always had friends on both sides of the aisle because I refuse to group people into an identity, especially one dealing with political party affiliation. But no matter who I talk to, regardless of their affiliation, they're very, very frustrated with what's going on. And I tell them, our problem is not, like you said, a right-left paradigm. Our problem is corruption. And the fact of the matter is that the mainstream GOP and the mainstream Democratic Party are both very, very corrupt. And our founding fathers warned against political parties for exactly that reason, because whenever you collude interests, you start to have people that want to have power over instead of power with. And the only way to sustain a true republic is to have power with each other, not power over others. So I'm very confident that 2012 is going to be a year of awakening for people.
I truly believe that. And I knew there was a reason, Michael, that you endorsed her. I couldn't figure it quite out, but now I know.
It becomes obvious the longer that you know, Tisha.
Yeah, I mean, I'll toot her horn. I mean, if you can't tell already, folks, by the short period of time that she's been on the show and just how she explained it, corruption at its core, the battle of good versus evil, that's what it is at its core. We being the good guys, they being the bad guys, the MF Globals, how congressmen have tripled their personal wealth in the short time that they're in office. This kind of stuff, would that happen to average Joe Schmuckatelli on the street? Heck no, it won't. But when you have all that inside information and all those companies lobbying you, guess what? There's perks. You know, that's the way it is. And that's what they'll tell you. Hey, you know, what they say at the Naval Academy, Tisha, is it's called ring knocking. You know, you get that ring from the Naval Academy, and then when you get out of the Navy, you go to that Fortune 500 company, and what do you know? The guy that's running it or in there, you know, he's got one of those rings, and you got one too. And hey, you're in there, buddy. Woo! And that's how that's how it works. It seems like everything from top to bottom at this point is just totally corrupt. So how would you solve the problem of corruption in the federal government? What would you do, or what steps would you take to change the culture?
Well, everything goes back to the incentive for corruption, and that's money. And there's two different levels that our money is corrupted. One is the Federal Reserve and the fact that our currency has no value, and it's a fake system that erodes the wealth of every American. Again, it doesn't matter what party you are. The Federal Reserve is eroding your wealth as we speak. And the second thing is there's just the federal government has so much of our money to start with. That's why there's this money for, you know, there's an incentive for our congressmen to spend that money. And that's where lobbying comes in. So we need to get to a system, first of all, where our currency is sound. We have sound money, and it's backed by something of value. And secondly, we have to stop taxing the American people so much. The federal government does not need all that money. If anything, a lot of these entities that the federal government says are necessary could be pushed down to the state level. I disagree that many of them are necessary. I'd rather see them in the private sector. But those are the two things that we really need to focus on. And, you know, as far as me as a representative, I have to find other Congress people willing to work with me. But on a local level, actions can be taken right now to try and sustain local communities and make it so that they can create wealth, which is much more sustainable for our country and for liberty.
That's fantastic. What's your thoughts on lobbying?
Well, I don't like it, but again, the only way that you're going to truly attack the taproot of the problem is by getting rid of how much money the federal government has to play with. So a lot of people get mad at the lobbyists and want to end it and stop it and stop people. Well, the only way to do that really, first of all, you need to elect people to federal office that aren't corrupt, that are going to have the integrity to say, no, I'm not going to take your money. Secondly, we really need to focus on how much money the federal government has and how much they have to work with. My biggest issue is with the IRS. I think taxation on people's labor is unconstitutional because it's an extension of the property. And if more Americans were allowed to keep their own money, which they earn by their own hand, that would create more beneficial economic development versus being taxed, having all the bureaucracy and red tape sent to the federal government, and then having these corrupt Congress people spending that money.
Hold on hey, that's a great answer, too. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Tisha Casida, Michael Badnarik, John King, myself. So we'll be right back. You're listening to Freedomlink Radio on the Orion Talk Radio Network. Don't go away. So here we are, folks. We're back. Tisha Casida, Michael Badnarik, John King, and myself. And the talk tonight is really about current events and solutions to the problem. And that's one thing I think the people of this country are so hungry for, are actual solutions. Instead of hearing people talk out the side of their mouth and say, yeah, we'll promise you the world. We'll close Guantanamo Bay. I promise that I won't have a single lobbyist in my cabinet. And then all of a sudden, what happens. And it happens every time. But I honestly think, guys, and Tisha for sure, I think that you're benefiting from this general awakening and the fact that people are just so sick and tired of hearing the same old lies and garbage again and again. Oh, now, we were talking about solutions and how to solve the culture of corruption, and I brought up lobbying. And you can't really do away with lobbying, but as you said, you could take away the incentive. Is that right? The incentive for the government to spend?
Right. The less money that they have of the American taxpayer, then the less we have to worry about them spending money. Lobbyists come in when we have agencies like the EPA, the TSA, the FDA. That's what's allowing for this. When they get money and then they have these programs, that allows for the lobbyists to come in and either lobby to create laws that benefit them or lobby to have money spent with them in particular.
John King, you had something to ask Tisha?
Thank you. Tisha, let's just pretend for a moment that I'm a Colorado voter. You say you hate lobbyists. What can you tell me to make me feel better to vote for you that says that you're not going to turn your back on a voter like everyone else when they get in, irregardless of the party?
Well, what I'm really counting on is to have people understand my character and integrity. That's what's most important. And really, it's about building trust and relationships with people. So my words coming out of my mouth are just as much as anyone else, telling you the same thing. However, I have a background. I've had a small business that's struggled because of the economy. I have many friends and clients that are small business owners that have seen the same thing. I feel completely dedicated to the next generation coming up and making sure that I do everything in my power to make sure that they grow up in a free country. And what I'm counting on is for people to first of all believe what I say, and then secondly, hold my feet to the fire. I have no expectation of becoming a lifelong politician. I'd really like to do something great for my country and then come back to my 3rd Congressional District of Colorado and buy and sell real estate. I have a real estate license, and start and continue my small business, which is marketing. I don't want to stay in Washington, D.C. and line my pocketbook. I just want to come back and work and actually make money that has some type of value.
Tisha, a question for you is, and this comes from my wife, is in the event that you don't win against this Republican, and I think you're going to smash him personally. I think you're just going to wipe the pavement with him. But if you don't, will you continue the fight regardless of the outcome of the election? Do you plan to run again, or do you plan on fighting for, say, working with the county sheriffs and all that kind of stuff?
I'm pretty dedicated to continually fighting for liberty in the country because this is where my family is, and I could never leave them. I'd fight to the death to make sure that they're okay and that someday that I have my own family in this country. But I don't really have any idea of what that would look like. I'm really counting on the people of my district and the American people waking up in 2012 and having a smashing results of the 2012 election.
I'm so happy that you have taken up the mantra of freedom and understanding that in the end, it's really not about us. Our generation, we are kind of like on the cusp. We're the ones that are going to make or break this country in that our children are not going to have what we had, first of all, if we let things continue the way they are. But I can't even imagine what the world is going to be like if things continue on their current course. I mean, look at now with the National Defense Authorization Act and some of the some of the documents that I found recently having to do with Blue Force situational awareness in the context of continuity of government and this strategic implementation plan issued by the White House. I mean, they're on a full court press to implement a police state at this point. And one has to ask the question, why? Why do you think they're so desperate to implement these controls over the populace?
I'm really confident that they thought, and by they, it includes a whole group of people and agencies, but I'm very confident they thought that they had more power and control than they actually do. They've realized that, and now they're trying to put reinforcements on the dam to make sure that what can be free isn't. And so I take what's happening as a very good sign. I think that the American people have more power than we really understand at this point, and that for many, many years we've acted in fear, and fear-based actions are what can cause a lot of headaches for people in your own life, as well as for a country at large. There's a Patrick Henry quote, what is it? Fear is the passion of slaves. And so that's really our biggest problem. The fact that we have the NDAA and that strategic implementation plan verbiage coming out of the White House shows us that we're probably on the right track. We have a lot of work to do as far as getting people in the community up to speed about what this means. But in my opinion, we're winning, and now we have to continue to win. And that's going to take a lot of hard work on behalf of liberty lovers and patriots throughout the country.
Oh, I certainly do agree. You know, one thing that I said when I was on Alex Jones's show last week was that, first of all, you have nothing to fear. There's nothing to fear here. When fear is a very paralyzing emotion, and it's something that people don't. It seems to be the first instinct that they feel when they're up against adversity or a challenge of some sort, is they fear. I like to call they fear success. I don't like to say they fear failure. I like to say they fear success, because really at this point you have to look at it as if we are succeeding. Much like Ron Paul, when you see people like Newt Gingrich just come out and attack the snot out of him over these stupid newsletters that came out 20 years ago, that's encouraging to me. I don't get discouraged by it. I get encouraged because that means that they see him as a viable threat. So, and it makes Newt look like an idiot. So, so I'm encouraged by what I see with the White House and with the powers that be implementing, trying to put the language out there that they're implementing this police state, because it shows that we are, as a populace, waking up and that we're hip to their scheme. And it's an act of desperation. At least that's the way it seems to me. So when we come back, I'm going to get Michael's feedback on this, get John King to weigh in as well. So stay tuned and sit tight, folks. A lot of show left to go. You're listening to Freedomlink Radio on the Orion Talk Radio Network, AM 1650. We'll be right back.
Eastern on the Orion Talk Radio Network.
Welcome back, folks. I'd like to thank everybody who's taken the time to send an email with comments, suggestions, compliments. Heck, I've even been ridiculed a few times, but I appreciate all of that, believe it or not. So if you would like to send me an email, the email address is thefreedomlink@centurylink.net. That's thefreedomlink@centurylink.net. Again, I'm joined by Tisha Casida, independent candidate of the 3rd Congressional District of the state of Colorado, and Michael Badnarik, 2004 Libertarian presidential candidate. His website, constitutionpreservation.org. And, of course, the incredible John King. So, John, any questions for our guest tonight?
Tisha, what would be the first thing you would do once you got into office? What do you think the first thing you would do once you obtained the office?
The two things that I would focus on are either complete transparency of the Federal Reserve, and I think that would basically lead to us abolishing the Federal Reserve. So I'd work on legislation that would allow us to do that. I think Ron Paul has laid out a pretty good plan. And the second thing is this National Defense Authorization Act. I would do everything in my power to get rid of that law. And I realize that it takes more than just one person, but I will certainly be a mouthpiece for it, because I think that it's a very dangerous intrusion upon the American people, and more people have to be aware of what's going on. And if I may, this is something that's really important for me with our representatives. I think that we elect people to represent us. That does not mean they go to Washington, D.C. to create legislation. We should not be electing legislators. We need to elect statesmen and representatives and people that go to Washington, D.C. to actually represent the people in their district or in their state. And that's the whole mentality that we have to shift and change.
I think it's
Wow.
a fantastic answer, first of all. But how about these riders? I mean, this is an appropriations bill. This is something that sets the defense budget for 2012. Why should Congress be allowed to attach riders to a bill that has nothing to do with it? I mean, can't there be some sort of legislation introduced to get rid of that? Tisha, answer that, and then if I could get Michael, you two, to weigh in on that.
I don't think it's right, but we need to elect people to Congress that are not going to do it. I don't think creating another law will stop them from doing stupid things. That obviously hasn't worked very well for us so far. So we really just need to elect people with integrity who are not going to pull these stunts on the American people. That's our best solution.
Michael, what about you?
Well, the American people have got to take responsibility for the government. If we don't read the Constitution, understand it, and defend those principles, then George Bush was right. It's only a piece of paper. And Tisha is absolutely correct. You cannot legislate morality. You can't send Congress to Washington to regulate Congress. You know, we've got to take responsibility, and we've got to participate. And one of the things that Tisha is demonstrating is that if you don't like the way they're doing it, you can do it yourself. So, you know, she has taken a big responsibility to represent District 3. She is a woman of integrity. You can hear the answers. She understands the problem. And in her own words, she's hoping to go to Washington, D.C., to cut off the head of the snake. And I mean, I love that kind of talk, and I know that Tisha is very sincere. And so rather than run for office myself this election, I'm doing everything that I can do to support her and let everybody know about her.
Now, Michael, Tisha, do you guys have any plans to do any further Bill of Rights seminars or anything like that as the campaign progresses?
It's our goal in 2012 to have several of these events throughout the 3rd District of Colorado, as well as throughout the state. I think there's other people in the state that are not in the district that would really value and appreciate what Michael can teach them. So we're working on our schedule as we speak. And if you have any listeners that are in Colorado or know people who are, we're asking, you know, as many people as we can to outreach to the campaign. This is very grassroots, and we'll work on getting something organized in a town near them so that they can come and hear Michael speak and learn what we can do to further become a self-sufficient district.
Now, your district, what part of Colorado is that? That's one question that I got in the chat room, was they wanted to know exactly what part of Colorado does your district encompass?
It's, as Michael says, it's almost a third of the state. It's a good chunk of the western part, the western slope, which is the Rocky Mountains. It goes all the way up to the Wyoming border, to the Utah border, down to the New Mexico border. And then there is also a chunk in the southern part. It's 45,000 square miles of very rural area.
Holy moly's. What's the population like?
I think the total is 614,000.
Okay, wow. So, I mean, still quite a bit of people, but just very spread out.
Very, very spread out. I think Michael found one community that had 500 people, 300 people. So
wow.
We have a lot of little areas. Michael?
Well, the House of Representatives is based on population. The western slope is sparsely populated. So when Tish and I talked and I was considering going to Colorado, I asked her what cities she wanted me to teach the Bill of Rights class in. She goes, well, I'm on the road right now. I was hoping you could figure that out. So I go to the internet and I looked at the map, and if you just draw a vertical line north-south through Colorado, it's almost the entire left half. It's like, and we covered it, by the way. Tish and I drove a week, went from Denver to Grand Junction to Pueblo, and stopped at a lot of different places in between. So when I tell you that Tisha is dedicated to getting out and talking to the people of District 3, I know from a fact, because, I mean, we put on probably 1,100 miles.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's a lot of work, too. I mean, to cover that type of area, you're not talking like a metropolitan area where everybody is just right there, where it's convenient. You know, you could go to the public library, or you could go to City Hall, or to wherever and have a big function. So, I mean, you literally have to spend a lot of time on the road, don't you?
It was a lot of work, and Tisha was keeping busy, too.
Very funny.
Oh, there's a little dig at you.
Low
Okay.
blow.
Now, because you're this is a rural area, and you're aware of a lot of there's a lot of farmland out there, I take it.
Yeah, more mountains than
Her campaign, you can go to her website. It's Casida, CASIDA 2012.com. Go there, peruse the site, see what her platform is, and if you got $1 or $2, support her campaign, because we need people like her in Washington, regardless of if she's in your district or not. These people with honor and the commitment and the courage to stand up for what's right are the people that we need to get in to Congress to actually affect change. You know, one thing that really ticked me off to no end was to see how many people, Tisha, actually voted for this NDAA, who supposedly went to Congress just this last go-round, saying that they were going to change the culture of corruption in Washington. And, you know, people like Marco Rubio, look at him, you know, what a wolf in sheep's clothing, you know?
Yep, absolutely. It is very saddening to see people that they have the ability to talk to the American people and to the people that they're going to represent and not follow through with what they say they're going to do. And it's incredibly frustrating. And we have a lot of work to do as a country to get these guys out of there again. And we just have to continually get new representatives in, because we do not want career politicians. We want people who go there to protect the American people and then come back to live in the environment that they create.
Well, let me ask you this. Would you be a proponent of term limits?
I would be, but it's not the most sustainable means of fixing that particular problem. The best fix for term limits is to have an educated and active population that's going to hold people accountable and hold their feet to the fire. We have an education system that's created several generations that make decisions based on emotion versus making decisions using critical thinking. And with that emotion, we are where we are now. And what we really need to do is start to unravel the tentacles and have people that are critically thinking and questioning and asking questions and having people active and having people hold their representatives' feet to the fire as a much more sustainable means of term limits versus, again, legislating morality and trying to create laws to fix the problems. Laws do not fix the problem. Only people can fix the problems. And that's what we really need to work on if we really want to create a different environment to operate in.
Hey, Michael, she's passing the test right now. You're 100% right as far as just how on point she is with all these questions that I've asked. She's given all the right answers. Where would you say this campaign needs to focus in order to achieve success in the next election? What would you say is the big sticking point that she would need to focus on out of anything else? What do you think?
There are a lot of things. What she is doing is she is appealing to the issues that the people in District 3 are concerned about. District 3 is primarily rural, a lot of agriculture, but they are stubborn and independent. In fact, if you've survived on the western slope, you have to be stubborn and independent, otherwise you didn't live through the winter. And they had a Democrat in office for 6 years. They ousted the Democrat last election and put in a Republican. And now, within the middle of the first term of office, they're already looking to throw the Republican out. So they don't like the disenchantment.
What's the disenchantment with the Republican, would you say?
He made all the standard promises, going to make government smaller, and, I mean, he didn't even make it to Washington, D.C. He was already laughing and following the party line. And so the people of District 3 have been lied to. They are tired of the status quo, and Tisha has consciously and very wisely avoided running as a Democrat or a Republican. I mean, because the people of District 3 have got vegetables and rotten fruit, looking to really oust anybody that's coming from, the two major parties. And I've been on the campaign trail for many years. I've been an instructor all my life, and I've developed some experience answering tough questions. And when I was touring Colorado with Tisha, I would do my presentation, and she would give her little stump speech, and then the people were asking questions. And there were some tough questions, and my immediate reflex was, oh my God, that's a really tough question. And I sat there wishing that I could answer the question for Tisha. Let me take this one. Tisha does not need my help, which is why I've been sitting here, just happy to listen to her. She's understands the principles. She has the ability to articulate it, and I'm just lucky to be on the campaign team. I'm just holding up signs and putting out bumper stickers, and she's the superstar. And the only thing that I can do.
Well, is that what you've been relegated to, Michael? Is holding up the sign as people beep the horn as they go through the intersection? Is that really what it's come down to? Oh, good Lord!
I've told Tisha that I will do anything for her campaign that she needs me to do. Now,
that's right. Michael Badnarik will be handing out kitty cones at the polling at the precinct.
If that's what Tisha needs me to do, I will be doing it. But what I have, I have a BlackBerry, and the reason that I use that is because most of your cell phones don't accommodate the 2,400 names and phone numbers that I have. I mean, when you run for president, you run for Congress, you make a few friends. And I literally have people that I know in all 50 states. And when Tisha first called and asked me for my advice, I told her not to run. I told her the voting machines are rigged, the media's going to be against you, you're going to spend all your time and money, you're just going to end up cold and cynical like me.
Well, right, because being run through the mill like you have, you can become cantankerous, can't you?
Cantankerous. I was downright despairing. I mean, I had given up. I was sitting here in Indiana, loading magazines, waiting for martial law, going, "Come on, bring it on, guys. I'm ready for you." And guys are laughing. I'm telling you, I was pretty much giving up. And so Tisha called back and said, "Well, I've ignored your advice. I'm running for Congress anyway, and I want your help." And, well, frankly, she caught me off guard. It's like, that's a little ballsy. And so I went to Colorado because I had an opportunity to teach a couple Bill of Rights classes. I figured I'd make a couple dollars, to make some money. And what can I say? I'm mesmerized by Tisha's ability to get the message out. It is difficult for me to find somebody more passionate and more extreme on freedom than I am.
I would classify her, if anything, as solution based, not identifying, not going after the symptom. She's trying to solve the problem.
Yeah.
That's what makes her so refreshing over everything else that I've heard.
So she brought me out of retirement, and I'm in 150%.
Hot dog. I mean, that's great. Tisha, is there any websites you want to plug or anything that you want to put out before you leave the show?
Yeah, I just encourage people to visit our website, which you mentioned, thecasida2012.com. And we really do need as much support as we can get. If it's $5, $10, $15, it makes a huge difference for us. We have a campaign that is grassroots and it's very, very core. So the more help we get, the better. And then I'd also want to plug Michael's website. He's been a great help to the campaign, and it's constitutionpreservation.org. And he has some great projects going on that we're hoping to bring to Colorado, including that county sheriff project.
Yeah, we'll be sure to get into that the next hour too.
Okay. And just want to thank you, Joe and John and everybody who's fighting for freedom, because we all rely on each other and it makes a huge difference. So thanks for letting me be on your show, and thanks to your listeners for listening.
If there's one thing I learned last week, because I too was getting discouraged, is that one person can make a difference. You catch that lightning in a bottle, and next thing you know, boom, you can really affect change. And it may not happen today or tomorrow or a month from now or even a year from now, but there's something out there that just gets under the skin of everybody, and you don't know what that thing will be, but when you get it and you go with it and you solve it or you offer solutions to it, man, I'll tell you what, it just opens everything up to you. And I hope and pray that over the next year, that 2012 is really an awakening or an enlightenment period for not just the people of the United States, but the people of the world, so that we can actually see more change for the positive instead of what we've been seeing, which is, a clampdown, police state tactics, all that kind of stuff. Tisha, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joe.
Hour number 2 coming up, folks. So sit tight. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. You're listening to Freedomlink Radio on the Orion Talk Radio Network and AM 1650.